Getting the most out of less. That's exactly what Paul Rhoades has done in his tenure as Iowa State head coach. In fact, 2 of the last 3 seasons, the Cyclones have gone to a bowl game. And for Ames, Iowa, that's an accomplishment. Last season, as long as the game was close, that's exactly where Iowa State wanted it. Because last year, the Cyclones played 6 games that were decided by 6 points or less. The Cyclones won all 6 of those games, including the Oklahoma State thriller, preventing the Cowboys from going to the national championship game. Can Iowa State once again reach bowl status entering 2012? A lot of people really don't think that's going to happen, and a big reason why was just because I've mentioned, because they were the beneficiary of so many close games. Look, last season was magical for Iowa State in terms of getting to bowl eligibility. They had to win all 6 of those games by holding on or from coming from behind in order to pull it off. Sometimes that works, but long-term, it doesn't ever seem to for any program. I don't care who you are. So experts really feel that for Iowa State, they're going to take some steps back because they do lose their best defensive back. They also lose some other players on defense, and offensively, they have to replace their best receiver. So for Iowa State, Paul Rhoades has another big task in front of him, and you get the feeling that if the Cyclones are going to get back to a bowl game, it's going to take more than pulling off one improbable victory, which is what they seem to do under Paul Rhoades lately. 2009, it was winning at Nebraska. 2 years ago, winning at Texas, who at that time was ranked, and then last year, of course, the Oklahoma State game in late November. But this year, Iowa State's probably going to have to pull a few upsets, not just one, to get into a bowl conversation. Now, to me, key number 1 is going to be quit hurting yourself, ISU, meaning the turnovers as well as red zone inefficiencies. Talk about the turnovers first. Although the defense did force 24 takeaways in 2011, the offense didn't do their part at all. 35 turnovers is what Iowa State amassed that season, including the fact that they had a minus 11 in the turnover ratio department. That was worst in the Big 12, and it was 112th in the country out of 120 teams last season. So, part of the problem, we just described it right there. Even though Iowa State had a 6-win season good enough to get to a bowl game, imagine how much easier they would have made life on themselves and how much better off they would have been if they could have controlled the turnovers. Also, an area of concern for Iowa State was the red zone, the area inside the opponent's 20-yard line. In what's last season, there were 15 possessions, which ended up in 0 points when they got inside the opponent's 20-yard line. Even if you get just 3, it's better than nothing. But you can't just walk away empty-handed on possessions. And last season, Iowa State only scored 69% of the time that they got inside the 20-yard line. So there's an area of opportunity as well. Talking about the skill players coming back for ISU, I don't know who they're going to go with the quarterback. I mean, you got Steele Jantz or you got Jared Barnett. I know Barnett played quite a bit last season. Jantz has seen his fair share of snaps before. And you get the feeling that whoever looks the best in terms of August football as far as passing efficiency might get the job, because both struggled in this department last year. Both last year barely completed over half of their passes. At least the receiving core, you've got some weapons back, including Josh Lenz, a guy they were able to count on, as well as Albert Gary. But you do lose Darius Reynolds. He was a good one. So we'll see how the passing efficiency goes, and we'll see who gets the starting nod at QB, either Barnett or Jantz. The running department, well, I think a lot of it could very well be predicated upon the health of Chandrell Johnson, whom in the beginning Iowa State had high hopes for, and he showed signs of greatness, but had a big-time neck injury last year, and no telling if he's going to be 100% entering this season. If he can't go, they'll have to go with James White or with another player who played little last year in Jeff Woody. But at least there's options there in the backfield. Okay, key number 2 for Iowa State, life after Kalechi. We're talking about Kalechi Osemele, their wonderful all Big 12 tackle, who became a second-round pick by the Baltimore Ravens. And even he last season wasn't immune from injury. He had some injury problems last year. In fact, that was a big theme for Iowa State in 2011, was the fact that they just couldn't avoid the injury bug on the front. Talked about Osemele having injuries, but also a guy that is coming back this year, and Iowa State is hopeful that he's recovered from his broken leg injury, and that is Braden Burris. Burris did play quite a bit in 2010, but once again had leg issues last year. And then the other tackle position occupied by Carter Bykowski. A serviceable center does come back for Iowa State in the form of Tom Farniak. He returns. And at the guard position, there were some injuries there a year ago with Ethan Tufte. Had a knee injury after playing most of 2011, so the Cyclones are optimistic that he'll be ready to go. And the right guard position right now, 4 different guys are vying for that position. That's truly the most unstable position right now is right guard, just because they're not set on who's going to start there. For Iowa State last year, they moved the ball a little bit, but they averaged about 22 points a game, which in the Big 12 was not going to cut the mustard because it is such a offensive league. So we'll see if Iowa State's numbers can go up. Otherwise, they'll be at the bottom or near the bottom in the Big 12 in terms of offense. Looking at defense, and when you think of Iowa State defense, think of 2 guys, okay? The linebackers, and they're darn good ones, all Big 12 players, A.J. Klein as well as Jake Knott, who have been there for a while. They are amongst the best linebackers, in my opinion, in the Big 12. You can make an argument for Tom Ward at Oklahoma, as well as Sean Lewis at Oklahoma State, and, of course, Arthur Brown at Kansas State. But I'm telling you, Knott and Klein deserve to be in the same discussion. They're that good. Last season on the defensive front, Iowa State had a difficult time getting to the quarterback. Last year, they were one of the worst teams in the country when it came to QB sacks. Only 17 for the entire year, barely more than 1 per game. And this has been an ongoing problem for Iowa State in recent seasons, the fact that they just can't get to the quarterback at all. And this year, they're hopeful that that's a department that will see a rise in production. Talking about the ends, and that's Roosevelt Majit, and he is a guy that is recovering from a torn ACL. So if he's fully recovered from that, then that will no question aid the situation. And then your other defensive end includes David Irving. At defensive tackle, Jake McDonough, as well as Cleon Lang, and I think Lang's probably going to be the best of the interior players. Iowa State expects a lot from him. And then the secondary, last year, it actually wasn't too bad considering that the Cyclones could not get to the quarterback often. Last season, the Cyclone secondary gave up 300 yards passing just 1 time, and that was against Oklahoma State. So the secondary, you couldn't ask much more from them. But they do have to replace their best player in terms of Leonard Robinson. So at the corners, Jeremy Reeves. Reeves is only like 5 feet 7 inches tall, but he can tackle, and he can definitely cover. And Iowa State, a little nervous because he had to have wrist surgery during the offseason. So really watch out for that. And then the other corner, Jansen Watson. And then filling out the rest of the secondary for ISU, Jacquez Washington. They think that guy's got a lot of upside from one safety. And then the other safety, maybe not as talented but serviceable, in Darrell Givens. And look for Jared Brackens to play quite a bit also in the secondary for Iowa State. And talking about the special teams, and they do have to replace a veteran place kicker. Looks like redshirt freshman Chris Moore will have to be the guy to do that, and he's listed right now number 1 on the depth chart. The punting situation doesn't look like they'll have to alter that much because Kirby Vanderkamp does come back to be the punter, averaged about 43 yards per punt a year ago. As far as the return game, James West will primarily get that job, although Josh Lynn's returned kicks last year, returned punts, but didn't average a whole lot per return. So this was just an average area, in my opinion, for Iowa State in 2011. So 2012, we'll see if that area is on the upside. Now talking about the schedule for Iowa State, 3 non-league games, and the first 2 could be trouble. It's at home for the opener, but you're playing Tulsa. who is one of the favorites to win their division in Conference USA, and Tulsa has been a consistent bowl team lately, so that will not be an easy game. The second game for the Cy-Hawk Trophy will be at Iowa. Last year, the Cyclones outlasted the Hawkeyes in overtime, but that game was at Ames. This time it's at Iowa City. Iowa will probably be favored to win. And Western Illinois the following week. That should be a victory for Iowa State. So you're looking at 1-2 or 2-1 to start the season. And then you get a week off before heading into Big 12 play where you will host Texas Tech. The Cyclones will have no chance at all at getting to a bowl game if they can't beat Texas Tech. Last season in Lubbock, they thumped him. This year's game is in Ames. I know Tech will be better this year. But the reason why I say the Cyclones aren't going to a bowl game if they don't win this one is because the Big 12 is only going to get tougher. So you have to get victories wherever you can. And this is one of those games where the Cyclones will either be favored to win, or if they're an underdog, it should be a slight underdog. So an opportunity to win your Big 12 opener. Then it gets very tough after that. October 6th at TCU. Probably a double-digit underdog in that one. Then you go right into October 13th with a matchup against Kansas State. That will be at home at least. The following week at Oklahoma State. Loss right there. October 27th at home against Baylor. Got a shot at that one. And then November, 3 of those 4 games look like losses to me. Oklahoma at home, at Texas the following week, and then at Kansas on the 17th. Shot at beating the Jayhawks, but remember, Kansas almost beat Iowa State a year ago in Ames. So that game's no gimme. And then you close out the year at home against West Virginia. 9 consecutive Big 12 games with no bye week in between. The 2 bye weeks are the 22nd of September and the week after the season is over. No December game for Iowa State. So I don't like how that schedule lays out, although you do get 5 of your 9 conference games at home. For Iowa State, there are a few nice players on the team. And again, the linebackers and Knott as well as Klein are very good. But to me, they don't put up enough points on the board. And also, defensively, too many question marks. And last year, all their wins were in close fashion. And I don't know if they can keep that trend going entering 2012. So I'm going to say for Iowa State, they're going to digress this season. I'm going 3-9, and I'll say they finish second to last in the Big 12, 9th place finish. That's my look at Iowa State. We're going to talk about the West Virginia Mountaineers, another new addition to the Big 12. That'll be my next report. We'll catch you next time.